So I'm going to get started. I'm going to share my screen just to kind of go through the plan here. So we've got the economic injury disaster loan last week. That's completely changed. The simple introductory application, which is super quick to complete. But to date, I have not heard from any client that we've received any response from completing the application. And make sure when you're filling that out to request the $10,000 advance. This loan does require a personal guarantee. The advance is considered a grant. So even if you don't qualify for the loan, supposedly, and I say supposedly only because I haven't seen it happen yet, but you are supposed to be able to get the grant, which is not, you don't have to repay whether or not you qualify for that loan, regardless of whether you qualify. So it's important to get that going. There will be a stage 2 for that because of the personal guarantee and everything, and you will have to submit all these other documents. But I think really the hot topic today is this PPP. There's an awesome article at heavy.com that they have gone through every single bank and given you sites to be able to see what the status is. I wouldn't rely on this as a definite resource. I've never used heavy.com before, but I did click on several of the links to see. We are keeping in touch with that. Wells Fargo is not ready yet. Chase is not ready yet. Alliance has a paper process, which you can submit. I have submitted to Alliance. MidFirst, I have submitted. They have an electronic process. Most of these banks are existing customers only. So this is not the time to pick a new bank. This is the time to work with the bank you've already got. That one, unless you can get an account open quickly at another bank, you're going to kind of stall yourself in the process. It is like a gold rush, kind of like, oh my God, if I don't apply right now at 8 a.m., I'm not going to get it. Obviously it is important to apply now because it is a funded program, but it's the frenzy that people, like, you can only, when you go on the site, it literally took me all day yesterday on MidFirst to submit an application because it kept locking out because the sites are so busy, and that was one of the only ones you could submit electronically. Bank of America is the first of the banks to be live, and VA exists customers only, and it does not appear to be live yet. Those are just the most common banks that I see people using. So definitely, check with your own banker and see if there's what is available. So the basic, whether it's electronic or not, it's all the SBA form 2483, which has changed 3 times in the last week. So there's been a lot of changes, and it changes really by the hour. The sites are overrun. Try to apply early in the morning or late in the night to avoid keep getting locked out. The process is supposed to be fast, but it was supposed to be fast with the EIPL too. And I haven't seen anything back from that. Has anyone gotten any money, any $10,000 deposit or any responses from the SBA at all on any of the loans?
No.
No. Okay. The process, the rate doubled last night. It was supposed to be 0.5%, and in the interim final guidance issued last night, it's 1%. I mean, it's still super cheap, but are rapidly changing and getting tweaked very quickly. So, this information is what I got right now at this moment. That is.
Hey, Maddie.
Excuse me?
Maddie.
Needs to mute.
Calculations are really critical. So for the PPA, there's a lot of options out there on how to calculate it, but there are different methodologies allowed. And I have checked most recently with the eeCPA and their guidance to professionals like myself. There is a lot of room for interpretation. So I've kind of come up with my own methodology, advice depending on your situation. So for example, I have a client whose payroll is quite considerably higher in the first couple months of this year compared to last year, 12 months. So I'm using the average of the first 2 months of this year because they expect it to continue throughout the year. And then on the I have teenagers at home, so now I can hear music. I want to kill them. But this has been a lot of, I love them. I want to kill them. But we're all getting a little cabin fever here, grating on each other's nerves. Anyway, I forgot to give them the memo. They're usually still sleeping at this time. So, of course, they're awake now. But there are different methodologies. So then, for example, I am also using January, February for another client that has a higher payroll last year, but it has changed their business model and outsourced to another country. You cannot count that. You cannot count independent contractors, contrary to what a lot of people are talking about right now. In the interim final guidance that was issued last night, the independent contractors and sole proprietors can apply on their own for this PPP. That is why. So it's not, you can't count them as your employee and then have them go and apply for themselves. So they are allowed to apply for themselves beginning April 10th. For this program. So there are different methodologies allowed to calculate the average monthly payroll. But, you know, in a lot of cases, most people are using the 12 months of last year. That's what's in the interim final guidance. But in some cases, it's more beneficial to use an average of the first couple months of this year. Remember not to forget about employer contributions for benefits and health and retirement. Those are not in your wages, usually. Those 99% of the time, unless your payroll is screwed up. So you need to add that to your total payroll. So I kind of came up with my version of how it should look. So if you have gross, you know, this is your gross pay, this is all your tips, wages, compensation, everything. Then if you're over $100,000 per year, if the employee is paid more than $100,000 per year, then they, you have to subtract out that excess. So the 83.33.33 is the monthly cap if you're doing it by the month. And then the health, dental, vision, the employer portion of that, you want to make sure you're including that in your total here, which you're going to get a loan on. So like say we took all this out, right? Then you see how your loan amount, here's your, so if we take that out, your loan amount gets reduced. They're all multiples. So if we do, you know, if we take all this stuff out because you don't have access to it or you're not bothering with it, it definitely does affect the final loan amounts of what you can be eligible for. So 287 in that scenario, 300 in this scenario, but you're actually taking the average. So if we don't consider it at all, and this is just a 2-month time frame, like including your employer taxes too. And if we took this all out and you're just going off of wages, you're going to get, you know, 50 grand less. So making sure that you're including all these pieces is important. And a lot of the payroll companies are not tracking the employer portion. So you got to look at pull your health and dental bills out. But I do recommend that. Now,
Items from this one company for CPAs.
so there are different methodologies, whether you use January, February, there's a period of last year you can use, or the 12-month period. You have some options there. The typical one is using just last year's, 2019. Don't forget about the benefits. Guaranteed payments are compensation. So those are usually, that's for only partnerships or LLCs, taxes partnerships, not S Corps, not C Corps, but people who receive guaranteed payments, self-employment income from their business. So those are generally not in your payroll records. So if you didn't add these in, again, your loan amounts are going to be great. Your loan amount is greatly reduced, so you're losing money there with that. You can borrow $50,000 more just by including that. So, and the reason it's important is you're like, well, it's a loan. It's not really a loan because it can get forgiven. So as long as you keep the head count for 8 weeks after receiving the loan, so like your actual physical, head count doesn't change. You keep your employees at least 75% of their existing salary. You don't drop below 75%. So if you're doing pay cuts to keep your business alive, keep that in mind. And then even if you've terminated employees because your business closed down or whatever, you can rehire them. This is new by June 30th. So as long as you rehire them by June 30th, you're going to be eligible to receive forgiveness on this pay. So really, this is like a grant because you have to do a separate application to request forgiveness. But if you can borrow $300,000 and get that forgiven in 120 days, wouldn't that be amazing? That would be totally amazing. And there's no payments for the first 6 months of this either. So this is really awesome. A few things that are really critical are this PPP fact sheet. I'm going to send this out to all of you guys afterwards, but this final interim guidance and the PPP fact sheet are really important. The ABA journal article is just interesting to know, like how they doubled that. That was surprising and makes me a little tentative. And it also makes me tentative because I haven't seen, even for the earliest of applicants that we applied for March 20th, I haven't seen any money come from any of these loan programs yet. But I'm hopeful that obviously there's just so much to get all these big institutions to move.
You're talking about the first one. So it has nothing to do with change.
What about questions? What about some questions? Anybody have any?
So actually, it's just
I have a question. I don't know if I'm on.
Right? Don't have times your payroll for 1 month, for the 1 month.
So 1099, no.
Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. So you mentioned you can't include independent contractors, but we had 2 temp people. Can we include them?
If they're not employees, like on your payroll tax returns, I don't believe that you can include them if they're, were they temp to perm or they were just?
Temp.
Yeah, they're supposed to be on your regular payroll because remember to apply for the forgiveness or anything too, they wouldn't be included in your head count, which is good because you may not have 10 employees, but it's really intended for your regular permanent hires, you know, which what does permanent mean in the small business world? You know, you get used to somebody, you get them all trained up and then they leave. Or, you know, you determine someone, they run into a crisis and all of a sudden they checked out of your employment mentally or mindset. So it will fluctuate naturally, but no, my interpretation is that temporary hires, unless they were actually on your payroll. But if you contracted with a company like a Robert Half or something, I don't believe you can include those.
Okay, then I have another question. So for the employees, you can include their benefits.
Yes.
So, but for us, when we file for self-employment, can we include our health care insurance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Elizabeth, I don't know if this is a conversation we should have separately or not, but you suggested I don't do this right away.
Well, now that this new guidance came out last night that says you can't rehire, I would recommend that, but Wells Fargo's not available yet. But as soon as yeah. But
Okay.
now that it says by June 30, before I did not say that, then that gives you a lot of latitude. So do you mind my sharing that your business is closed right now? So
No, I don't mind at all. I don't mind at all.
so Leona owns a med spa, and she had to close because of it is a very essential service that she provides, but apparently it's not.
The women that are waiting for their Botox think it is.
But I had originally said, no, don't do this yet, because if you have to bring all those employees right on and pay them when it's closed, I know it could potentially get forgiven, but since the law keeps changing, it makes me nervous. Like the government's going to realize like all these programs cost all this money and all these people are making claims. I don't think they anticipated the number of unemployment claims that were filed last week, and I'm concerned. But now that they said that you can rehire the terminated employees by June 30th to qualify, and then I think she should, even though her business is closed right now, because she can still apply and she doesn't have to rehire them while her business can't open. So it just, to me, that seems silly. They can take advantage of the unemployment program in the meantime. So there is some strategy to this, and there's also a lot of certifications that you're asserting to on here. So for the clients that I'm helping, like I'm signing along with them on these forms, but you really have to be careful. There are criminal penalties, jail time if you are not. I mean, if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. You're not perfect. But if you deliberately like start applying for this for every business that you have and it's limited to one business, you are required to show your affiliated businesses. So there is some strategy there where we may be able to get more than one business if you own less than 20% of another business. They haven't come out with a lot of this affiliated, because you could have two completely separate different companies that both need assistance. So there is some strategy if you have multiple companies, or if you can only apply once, which companies do you really, if you have a group, which one is going to be most advantageous for you to apply under to get the maximum benefits. So there are some, if you have multiple businesses, just be alert to that. But you do have to, there are some pretty serious questions on this application. So you are certifying literally, whether you're doing it online or whatever, to all of these things. So just want to, you're certifying obviously that you're not a felon and all these other kinds of things, but here's the other ones, that you have faced problem, that your business has been impacted. So for example, I talked to a client the other day and their business has not been impacted. In fact, it's increased in business because of the kind of business they have. They transport medical waste and do some logistics for different types of medical things, and they are busier than ever, and their profits are increasing. So you are certifying that your business has been negatively impacted. Now with the med spa, it's closed, it's clear. With other businesses, if you can, you should be able to think in your head that you've proved that your revenue has dropped, or something along those lines, to be able to qualify. I think most businesses will qualify, but just keeping that in mind, there are a few oddballs out there that are actually not it says current economic uncertainty, which is fine for everyone, no matter what, but really read these questions and make sure that you feel comfortable with your answers. Don't just initial like I do for every thing I drop my kids off to a lot, like, oh, the disclaimers when you go to the jumping trampoline place or something like that. Like, really read these.
They're making more money but see, it's only for they can only get that for 4 months, so they're still screwed afterwards.
After July, everyone will be looking for work.
Yeah.
And then where are they going back to?
Right. So it's like, yeah, you're making more money than you ever have in your life.
But then it still says you can extend it at the normal monthly.
Yeah,
but if they save all that.
To move, I think, unless, are you talking to everyone else?
Elizabeth,
Yes.
this is Susie. I have a question about the 1099 because I just got off another call where they said that you could include them. And so a 1099 contractor, so she can apply for a PPP loan, but that would cover then what we've been paying her?
Yeah. So she can apply for it. Let me just find it here because I got asked, do independent contractors count as employees? This was just published last night. This is the final link that I was mentioning. I can send it to you, but the link is in there. This is direct from the Small Business Administration interim final rule, and here, you can Google this. But on page, I think it is 11.
Before that, you want to tell her?
Do independent contractors count as employees for purposes of PPP loan? No, because they have the ability to apply on their own. So you cannot include them. So a lot of our clients that use independent contractors as a way of doing business are discouraged.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
It's Barbara. So let's say that I apply, I qualify, since obviously I have no business right now either. What am I supposed to do in terms of tracking how I use the money? Because I know that there's set guidelines in terms of how it gets used once you receive the funds.
Yes, to get the deferment, especially. And to get that deferment, you really want to consider
You would have had to
here, how you're spending that money. So that is limited to this, to get. So your payroll for you work out of your home. So that's a little bit of it's mostly going to have to be in payroll, but you can control that.
Right.
Right. So, because we can take a percentage, we can argue a percentage because you truly do have home office of the interest, rent, and utilities, but it's not going to be your whole interest, rent, and interest and utilities because you're living there too.
Right. So at least my payroll and my telephone, Wi-Fi, some of those utilities that my company pays for would be covered.
Yes.
And then what about, you had talked about making sure we include like 401k. I had just signed up this year for the defined benefits program. Does that count as part of the retirement or just my 401k?
That is a good question. It does say, and payment of any retirement benefit. They did not exclude defined benefit plans.
It just comes across.
They did not exclude them. And I actually did get an email too from, I feel like Saber. Let me
I feel like, you know, she
see.
got
I will actually send you a follow-up email on that, Barb, and if anyone else, I don't think a lot of people have DV plans, but I'll also forward you the email I received on that. But it does say payment of any retirement benefit.
Okay, because that would obviously affect which 2 months I pick.
Right. Well, you're supposed to do an average monthly, so you can't randomly pick months. You can pick the first 12 months or last year, or the first couple months of this year, or if in rare circumstances,
is going to do this, yes?
you can use like Q2 of
Yeah.
What did she ever
Right,
send?
but I mean, I did the defined benefits plan in like January, February. So if I picked,
For us.
it might be beneficial if I picked the first
Or on the phone,
this
or
year.
did it on a
I'll
email?
just
Yes,
double
please
check.
apply.
Hey, Patty, can you guys mute your microphone? We can hear everything you're saying to each other.
Oh, we thought we did. So sorry.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And whatever you can send me would be awesome. I'd appreciate it.
Okay, I will do that.
Thanks.
Anyone else have questions? Need help?
Hey, Elizabeth, this is Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Hey, good morning. Hey, in the email that you sent out where you were doing the survey, there were 2 different loans. This is one of the 2 loans then?
Yes, this
Okay.
is a Paycheck Protection Program loan.
Okay. So if we've hired you to handle that for us, then you've already got that covered, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what about the other? What was the other loan? Is that not a highlight?
That's the AIDL loan where you can get the $10,000 advance.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're applying for both of these loans for every client that we access to, because that's impacted, because
Yes.
if we can't collect from one, perhaps we can collect from the other, or, you know, in a great world, we could get both.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Because we don't really, I don't have any concrete data right now of personal experience of seeing money actually get into clients yet. Or even denials, nothing.
Just no movement, huh? Just submission and wait. Yeah.
Which is really hard to do right now. If there's, you know, there's some clients like that have said, you know, my landlord said he's not, you know, decreasing my rent. He's not offering me terms like I have to pay this, and my business is closed, and
Right.
it's a crisis situation for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, this is real hardship for our business. Is just zero. Okay.
Anybody else have anything? All right, well,
Are you getting sleep?
yeah, a little. I got a little overworked last night and was working with a client, and my time to shine is like 5 a.m., not 12 p.m. So I decided after the 4th void of the DocuSign that I was going to hit the sack.
You take care of your health too, okay?
Will do.
All right, we appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.